So what are some takeaways that you've had so far from
Yeah.
building like what are, and obviously you don't have to share like all the secret sauce, but what are themes of hey, what we're doing here with a Discord or community makes sense for our Web2 brands? Is there any synergies there or things that you can talk about?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest learnings that we've seen is something that you kind of alluded to as well, which is like people don't want ads. Like people don't want to like have things
Mm,
in their face anymore, right? Like the
Yeah.
way that we think about marketing and the way we think about appealing to like a new generation of people has totally changed, and it's as if like we didn't see it, it just like suddenly happened.
yeah,
Right.
Um, like just like it's so like toxic, the idea of just like marketing straight to people, so no one wants that. We talk about Discord being like a space where it's you're able to have almost like one-on-one like engagements and communications like with your consumer essentially, right? Which seems as if it's something that's going to be time consuming, but it's like what I explained and what I talked about at this summit is that it's real time feedback on everything that you do.
Hmm.
And this is what you're able to get from the communities that you build. And like we talk about having like real time feedback, or we talk about having data. And like one of the things that I personally like have such an issue with is like we rely so much on getting data from tech. Like that's what we rely on. We rely so much from getting data from products,
Hmm.
rather than people, right? Like we get it from like the people who engage with that product, and like it's as if we've forgotten just how to like talk to our consumers, like
Yeah.
verbally communicate, like
yeah,
just ask them a question,
Yep.
yep,
and like going into Discord and being able to say like to a group of people, how do you feel about X, and getting a real time response to that, like X is like something. It's as if like that's not how we like used to communicate. Like people are learning to speak again for the first time.
right,
Yeah.
right. They're like, wait a
And
sec,
that's
you care about what I think?
Yeah.
yeah, and like, that's honestly I think like been really like game changing just to see that like how much it means for people to have genuine communication. Like when we with this Crypto Titans project, when I come into the chat, when I come into the chat and I start talking to the community, it's like people get hyped because like we actually talk to them,
Yeah,
like that's
yeah,
a team of people, like
yeah,
within this like massive corporation. It's like, no, it's just me ads behind a computer wanting to speak to you guys and just see what's going on.
right.
Yeah.
I think like that has been really quite inspirational. And then it's, you gotta almost take the product, or you gotta take like revenue or top line like out of the equation, right?
Yeah,
It's like that kind of formula that we've had for so long of like, you know, um, ads plus money equals a sale,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then
Right.
that formula, it's like you just got to take it out, and it's just like
yeah,
what you actually need, like as the winning formula, is like good product,
yeah,
you know, genuine connection
yeah,
equals
Yep.
brand loyalty, like, and then whatever that means later down the line is like what you need. Like that's the metric you should be tracking. Is like
Hmm.
how many people actually want to talk to you. It's
absolutely.
everything else goes naturally anyway.
Yeah,
This
I love
is,
that.
yeah. God, man, I wish every like Fortune 500 company board was listening to this because, it's so obvious, but yet every time it's spoken to people who are, once you get to a certain part beyond middle management, they hear this stuff and it's like their mind explodes because what do you mean just talk to the consumer? And it's it's insane because it always works. This has never failed. And yet it's always a fight to do this on a large scale.
Yeah,
Um, I remember one of the most famous studies about this was was done by Ford, right? And what had happened is they were selling trucks, but sales were dropping, and they kept bringing in these um, not what do you call them, groups of people for like
focus
survey
groups.
groups. Focus. Thank you. Focus groups. That's the exact word. They brought in focus groups, right? And finally, there was a middle manager who was a woman at Ford who said, "Why is it every time you bring in a focus group, you only bring in men?" And their answer was, "Well, it's mostly guys buying our trucks." So she went out and asked the people in the focus group and said, "When you're buying a car on the lot, do you go by yourself?" And almost all of them universally said, "No, I go with my spouse." And then they say, "An honest question, when you're buying that car, who has the most influence over you on the purchase decision?" And all of them said, "My spouse," right? And it's like, by the way, the studies all show this, right? Women make 80% of all consumer purchasing decisions. So she says, "Why don't we do the same focus group, but instead of having these guys here, bring their spouses?"
Yeah.
So suddenly they get a new focus group. And here's what's interesting. They have a new model vehicle, one that hasn't been released yet, and they let the women just rip it apart. What's the problem? And all the obvious things, it's hard to get into because I can't reach the handle to step up into this truck, right? It's the little things like that. And all of a sudden, the engineers are scribbling notes frantically, and they started adjusting this, and the sales skyrocketed. Why? Because now, when the couple goes to look at the truck, and the wife gets in it and likes it, what do you think happens?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like and that's just one specific example, but it's a perfect example of what you're saying. All they really did was talk to the actual end user and find out who's making this purchase decision and what do they want? How do we make this product better? And they'll tell you. And it's like it's very interesting to me because I love having these conversations. It seems again, it's people act like it's profound, but it's really really simple stuff.
Yep.
And Web3 is forcing people to kind of open their eyes up to this because the end user does get a say. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all, what just sparked in my mind. You're probably familiar with this ads, but I got a certification in design thinking. I had one of my mentors at one of my previous jobs. She was one of the head professors at the D School at Stanford. Are you familiar with all the design thinking methodology, which is kind of along these lines?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went through all this, and honestly, oh, we're gonna record. This is coming a clip out of it. We all three need to go to the execs at Discord and say, "You're thinking about your marketing and messaging wrong," because you know what Discord is? Discord is the world's best, most organic, informative focus group tool that ever existed, and they haven't even thought about that until
Yeah.
now. Huh? What do you think about that, ads?
I I think it's a fantastic point, right? And like it's even something that we talk about within Crypto Titans, right? Like that idea of like it is like it's a marketing tool, like in many ways too. Like if you choose to use it in like a very organic sense, um, I think it's very clever.